A colossal disappointment. Game of the year. Bioware is back. Bioware is finished. Fleshed out companions. Condescending juvenile writing. Excitement. Dread. Death threats. Dear God, what the is happening? As someone with a deep love of RPGs and fantasy, I was cautiously optimistic for Dragon Age the Veilguard. Bioware had a hell of a lot riding on it. From what I've seen from reviews though, I'll be honest, my excitement has evaporated. I'll give my reasoning for that shortly, but perhaps the biggest disappointment is the surrounding storm around it. This thick cloak of ill will and vitriol that just seems to permeate even the most purest things these days. This reminder that the industry, the world, and how we fundamentally interact with each other has forever changed in a way that is primitive, callous, and most of all, exploitable. I'm Ash Dixon, and this isn't a review of Dragon Age the Veilguard. This is a conversation on how and why this has all happened. Now, disclaimer, I haven't played Dragon Age the Veilguard. I am one of you getting this wild whiplash as I process these massively varying reviews. But I am a games journalist, and I've worked in media for a few years now, and this ain't my first rodeo. And the first thing I do with any of my videos is research as much as I can do in the time I have. And for this game, I've well and truly fallen down into the review rabbit hole, reading and watching a load of different perspectives. And all things considered, I'm feeling pretty confident that Bioware has dramatically missed the mark here, at least in terms of what I value in games like Dragon Age. I say this because reviewers like Austin from SkillUp and Mr. Matty Plays have done a brilliant job in letting the game speak for itself, showing extensive gameplay, letting cutscenes fully play out, and some of the examples are quite frankly embarrassingly bad. Now, they've already created fantastic videos detailing their thoughts, so I'm not going to dwell on that for too long here, but when I think of what I want from Bioware games, I think of interesting, nuanced companions, immersive storytelling, impactful decisions, and just all-round strong writing. Tragically, I have now seen countless examples displaying none of the above. Instead, I see scripting void of any edge or grit or risk. In fact, it seems to have dialogue reminiscent of a children's TV show. This is then only bolstered by the bewildering Pixar-like art style. In this scene, for example, your character stands there, hands on hip, like frickin' Bob the Builder. Like, genuinely, after this video, close your eyes and listen to the dialogue of this cutscene and just envision Bob the Builder chatting to Dizzy and Lofty. It really is that bad. Now, there is room to argue that in a vacuum, fundamentally, just because a game is squeaky clean, that doesn't discount it from being good. But a good Dragon Age game? That is the question people have been waiting to have answered for over a decade now. And yeah, sure, that's subjective in itself. In fact, it is wholly consistent to have such wide-ranging reviews depending on where you find enjoyment in games. Some games are just Marmite. All mediums have examples of things that are massively polarizing, and seeing the constant negative rhetoric around games journalists is just disheartening at the moment. Like, no one should have to worry about getting harassed or hate crimed because they dared do their job. Especially as I don't think the general gaming audience realize how dire the industry is right now. Ad revenue on videos is awful. Websites are at the whim of Google, constantly changing the algorithm, all while they boost their AI responses to the top of searches. And then you have publishers being more and more selective on who they give their review copies to. It's a constant, often impossible tightrope to balance on. It's like playing a game of Frostpunk. You have limited food, so who are you feeding? The children or your exhausted miners gathering vital coal? Have fun making that choice. But let me be absolutely clear here, hostility towards game reviewers is just as damaging. If we make it our mission to tar and destroy a publication because it does not align with public belief, well, what choice do they have but to die or to conform to what they think you want to hear? Well, congrats, that's just killed all value and journalistic integrity from that source. And the fact is, sometimes someone is going to say something you don't like. Sometimes they're going to be the only one saying it. And sometimes, rarely, but it happens when all is said and done, they were right. Like, let's have a history lesson, shall we? Back in the 1800s, there was a guy called Ignaz Semmelweis, a Hungarian physician who advocated that doctors should wash their hands before assisting with births. He believed this would dramatically reduce maternal deaths. This premise was openly mocked because it went against the current scientific consensus. In fact, he was so relentlessly scorned that he had a nervous breakdown and later died following a beating in a mental asylum. And oh look, he was right the whole time. Now, let's not kid ourselves, pardon the pun. We're talking about frickin' video games here. But behind these games are people with jobs and livelihoods, and there's fans with passion and excitement. Yet we continually, as a community, lack the self-awareness to not be part of the problem. In SkillUp's review, as scathing as it is, Austin recognizes that there are others hailing the Veilguard, and while it is unequivocally not for him, there's clearly enjoyment to be found for others. Plus, let's not pretend there's no positives to Dragon Age the Veilguard. Over on Digital Foundry's video, from a technical standpoint, he describes it as simply brilliant on PC. It looks great, has a lot of options, and runs like a dream. And oh look, the video has 25% downvotes because he said something positive. Yes, people are that dumb. It's the same reason why I dread this game flopping, even if it deserves to, because the anti-woke crowd will not shut up with the whole go woke, go broke BS. They'll say that line proudly, while Baldur's Gate 3, one of the most overtly queer games in existence, was one of the most financially and critically successful titles of last year. And if you don't like those themes, well, they're completely optional, just like Dragon Age. And that leads us to what I believe is the real reason that the Veilguard is not the game it should have been. It's because those in charge making the decisions do not trust their audience. They want their game to appeal to as many people as possible, so they water it down more and more until any of those interesting or unique flavors are just non-existent. Some people might not like conflict with their companions. Well, remove it. Some people might not like being evil. Well, remove it. Some people don't like getting stuck at complex puzzles. Well, remove them. There is such a fixation in media right now in being as inoffensive as possible, so they remove anything that people might not like, so much that they forget to focus on what people do like. This is a game for adults, and just look at the state of the world. Us adults are complicated, flawed, abrasive beings, which for the most part sucks, but by God does it make for interesting stories. That is what you need in an RPG. It's an issue across all media right now. Just look at the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender series. It trusts its young adult audience less than the original cartoon made for children. It's like, did Bioware forget that Game of Thrones, which contains scenes like the Red Wedding, was the biggest TV show in the world for years? Or that Baldur's Gate 3 literally lets players genocide children? I think the silver lining in this is that the Veilguard clearly isn't a complete disaster, and from a macro perspective, the lack of DRM and fantastic technical performance, well, EA and Bioware are clearly trending in the absolute right direction for some things. And there are lessons to be learned here. They've even outright said that Mass Effect 5 won't be having those stylized visuals that make their characters look like bloody handsome Squidward. But, and it's a big but, how many years away is that, and has too much goodwill and trust been lost? I'm curious what you think of the situation, and you are more than entitled to disagree with me on the Veilguard or why this has all manifested. Either way, share your thoughts and perhaps some resemblance of an interesting, nuanced conversation can take place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as we bring these videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We don't like making that low effort reaction content. We try and bring high quality gaming videos to YouTube. There's also a whole load of other great content on this channel too. Thanks for watching.